Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to What is an appraisal?
An appraisal is a value of the home you're buying. So when you go to buy a home, if you are not paying in cash, your lender is going to require an appraisal of the property because they want to know that the home is worth what they are lending it on. So they will contract an appraiser to go out and appraise the house value.
So let's make sure it's not what your loan amount is. It's the value of the total purchase price of the home. It's not your loan value.
Correct.
Yeah. And then also, so here's the situation. On the listing side, before we list a house, we will do an appraisal ourselves from the last 6 months is what most appraisers look at. And if they don't have at least 3 properties in your exact same subdivision within the last 6 months, then they're going to go outside that. But they are very, very careful. They don't like doing that. They don't like doing ranches to 2 stories or bi-levels to 2 stories or bi-levels to ranch. They're very particular.
Very particular.
And fortunately, Amber and I go about appraising properties differently. I have the PSA, which is
special. A pricing
specialist
specialist.
and analyst.
Analyst.
And Amber doesn't have that. But it's funny because we're usually within
10 to 20 grand of each other.
The way she does it and the proper way that I do it.
You say potato, I say potato.
But we get to the end result pretty much the same. But as a listing agent, it's our duty to get the house appraised at what we have it under contract at. And we do let all of our sellers know, hey, if you get an offer that's over asking, we'll do our best to get it there, but we can't promise that. And that's where that appraisal gap came in when we were in the unicorn years.
Yep.
So the house was listed at 800 and somebody wrote it for 850 and they got under contract. We still had to be sure that it got appraised at the 850. And if it didn't, if it came in at 825, there's a gap between the 825 and the 850 purchase price. So that $25,000, people came to the buyers came to the closing with that $25,000.
Often. And usually that was the only way you could get under contract in the unicorn years, is if you
had
the appraisal gap. You wouldn't even be in the top 5 if you didn't have an appraisal gap back then.
Mm-mm. So now, let's say that happens. Let's say that the house is listed at $800,000 and you offer $800,000, but it comes in at $790,000. So now you've got this $10,000 gap there. Well, you have the right, if you have it in your offer, that you can go and object to the appraisal and ask the seller to reduce their purchase price. So the seller can reduce the purchase price. You can negotiate that you split it, half, however you want to split it, or you can terminate the contract. Mm-hmm. So those are the 3 options for that appraisal. So that is a big deal, especially now that we're not in the unicorn years. It does matter. We worked with that a lot prior to that.
We did work with it a lot, and one thing that Kim and I always do, and we think it's very important, is as a buyer's agent, we go in, if you really love this property, we're going to look at comparables in that neighborhood and say, yeah, okay, this is fair. Like they're asking a fair market value for the home. Or we're going to go in and say, ooh, based on these, they might have a hard time appraising it, which means when we get to that part of the contract, we might have to renegotiate. Mm-hmm. So we'd like to make sure as a buyer's agent also that everybody's aware that, hey, there might be a difference in what this might come across later on. Mm-hmm. Or Kim doesn't necessarily like it, but I like to ask the listing agent, hey, can you show me the comps that you're going to show the appraiser? Because it's their job to get the value, and I want to see where they got that price to either, show my buyer where they got it, or to say, might be another negotiation.
The only reason why I don't like that is because when a buyer asks me, well, what are the comps that you used came to that price for the listing? I'm like, we could pull the same houses, mm-hmm. right, and come up with a different price.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't like doing that.
Right.
And then also just remember that the buyers and the buyer's agent has to be an arm's length distance away from that appraisal.
Yep.
So the buyer's agent can't
sway.
Well, you can talk. So
right.
you can't sway. Actually, no, that's not right.
Influence the price.
Can't influence the price in any way, shape, or form. Now, some appraisers say they won't talk to the listing agent, but they can. Legally, they can talk to the listing agent. It's just not the buyer's agent.
Correct. Yes. Well, yeah, and as the listing agent, we're the ones that communicate with them as to how we got the value. Some appraisers will give you a nice little worksheet, and you can fill out it step by step, like in terms of updates, the roof age, that type of stuff is the questionnaire that I sometimes get.
But boy, those updates are important though. As a seller, the one thing we will ask before the appraiser is like, give us a list of everything you've done to this house and the cost, approximate cost of all of it, because appraisers do look at that, and those are things they can't see. They can't see that you spent $50,000 and redid all the electrical.
Right.
They can't see that you spent $10,000 on a new sewer line. So they need to know those things.
Because they are part of the value of the home.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it in a nutshell. That's what an appraisal is.
That's what is.